I'm Kathryn Flaschner, and this is The Truth Is, a podcast about discovering what it means to live your truth. Even when it's messy, when it unravels the plans you thought you had and invites you to step into the unknown. Each week, we explore practices, stories, and conversations that illuminate the ways we find and follow our own path. This is a space to slow down, ask questions, and uncover what's been quietly waiting inside of you. If it resonates, subscribing, following, and engaging with the show really supports me in bringing more people into the conversation. Thank you for being here. Welcome to The Truth Is. Hey, little sis, welcome to The Truth Is.
Thanks for having me.
This is a pleasure, and it's fun for me because we talk every day, but this isn't about like a sister catch-up. This, for me, is about you getting to share your story of change and transformation and starting again. And, I'm just excited to be a listener to it and get to share it with the Truth Is community. And I really think it gives me the opportunity to learn about you in a different way off of our, multiple existential phone calls every week.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining me. Yours is such a story of redefining what success means to you, and you're in a very different career than you were a couple years ago. But I want to start going back to the beginning, and I'll ask, what do you think my listeners and I need to know about how you grew up to understand who you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I guess to answer the question of how I grew up to understand who I am today, I think there's elements of kind of perfectionism. And you asked me this question, and I think it reminds me of dancing growing up, of kind of seeking a pursuit that you're always striving for perfection, but you're never going to get there. But in that pursuit, you're going to go somewhere that you don't anticipate. So I think that was a big part of kind of my career evolution, which I'll think we'll get into. And I think community, I think our family and the closeness we have with each other and our other sister and our parents, I think it's led me to want a career that fosters more community and connection. And I know this is all kind of ambiguous and we'll get into the more specifics, but I think those are big parts of my upbringing that kind of shape the direction of my career, why I've changed my ambition and pursuits to include those things in my adult life. And yeah, I think those are big aspects of who I am today.
I love that you brought up dance because it makes me think about how we were so privileged to get to experience and try all activities in sports. And I can think about how the three of us all tried some of the same, but then at a certain formative moment, you were definitely a little bit younger than Erica and I. We each kind of found the thing we wanted to commit to, at least for those teenage years. And for Erica, she was definitely the chosen one to ride horses.
Absolutely.
I can remember me and you experiencing that a little bit but she was the one that was confident on horseback. I went the ice hockey route, and for you became a dancer and a more competitive dancer than either of us. So tell us a little bit, as you looked back to that experience and that being such a vehicle of growth as a young girl and young woman. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think, what you said, we all kind of did a lot of different things. And then when each of us hit high school, it was okay, what are we focusing on? And I used to play soccer, I tried basketball, like you said, riding, never graduated off of ponies, but we dabbled in a lot of things. And then when I got closer to high school, I was gravitating more and more towards dance, and I kind of cleared the slate, and that was my focus every day after school, weekends, started traveling. And I think, I did all different kinds of dance, ballet, tap, the full spectrum of what's available to competitive young dancers. And I think about ballet, and ballet is such a, like I was saying before, it's a striving for perfection in ways you contort your body and the artistry and the craft of it. And I think it was a really wonderful discipline as a young person, and to strive and like accept that you're probably never going to be Misty Copeland or at least, but it's you can pick your head up every so often and be like, oh, I've come a long way. Like I started to do better in competitions and all that stuff. And, it was just a very helpful discipline, and you got both the team aspect and the individual aspect. So I really loved my upbringing with dance and that discipline, and a lot of kind of different than team sports of what you experienced in field and ice hockey, probably, of like individual competitiveness with yourself and the people around you, but still at times being part of a greater team. So yeah, it was formative in that way of like self-discipline, being accountable to others, but also like having to have that internal drive to push yourself, to strive for perfection just for the pursuit in it, even if you're never going to reach that.
Well, you talked about it, in terms of understanding who you are. It brought up early notions. Maybe you didn't have the language at the time of perfectionism and striving for perfect. And you said it well, like the ballerina is this perfect ideal. And you were also, I remember going to watch you probably when I was in college. You were also one of the dancers that like at those recitals knew 12 different numbers. Yeah. I probably maxed out at 2 or 3. And so do you remember what it was like to like retain that much information?
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of it was my first really competitive year. I was a freshman in high school, and I remember the way a dance recital would work you would have Friday night show, Saturday matinee, Saturday night show, Sunday matinee. So you had 4 in a row. And I remember in each show I had, I want to say 16 to 20 numbers, and like they would change and swap out. And I was pulled into one last minute that I had to learn and play a part of. And it was the most I'd ever been challenged in that way up to that point. And I remember like the physical agony, and like I think I fainted after one show, and like I probably was popping like 14 Advils a day, but it was also immense accomplishment. And it's funny talking about it, and I think we're gonna talk about cooking and what I'm doing now, but like I'm laughing because I see a lot of similarities in both the mental and the intense kind of physical pursuit of it, and just like a feeling of accomplishment of like, if I did it and everyone was here to see it, there's no denying that like I did this thing and I can feel proud of it. And I liked the performance, I liked the entertainment aspect of it, and yeah, it was the first time I was ever pushed in that way, and combining the mental and the physical, I think, was kind of addicting. I really loved it.
I love what you just said about it. The fact that people witnessed it and got to see it was like proof to you that you did something. Because it sounds like it's so much adrenaline. And I see the metaphor with how you talk to me today about being in a high performing, intense kitchen. I mean, it is like there is choreography to it down to the second.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're using your body and your mind, and different degrees at different moments. And it's totally both things, dance and cooking, are both craft and artistry and intensely physical.
Intense repetition every day after school, again and again and again, so that when it's like served on a stage or on a plate, it feels like this effortless thing.
Yeah, and to like the audience, whoever's witnessing, like it should look easeful, but it comes from immense practice and discipline.
It's so interesting. I want to take us forward to like early career and thinking about what to do professionally with your life as you moved from that intense career as a dancer in high school into college. But before we leave our lovely 90s and early 2000s childhood, any early memories of food growing up and like seeds of what it meant in your life, what it meant in those early years in community you talked about, as you look back on that time of your life now?
Yeah, I think it's in childhood with meals, it's very pure memories of eating at one of our grandma's house or our aunt's house and be just having loved ones around. It wasn't necessarily specific dishes, but coming together at holidays, people in from out of town, it was always around a table. I think that's resonant in a lot of families and upbringings. But I also remember being delighted when it was something new and different that I hadn't seen as far as food goes. So I think of like our Aunt Rosie's pizzas. She would make it for Christmases, and I hadn't seen yet someone making a homemade pizza dough. I always thought it was Dad picking up Domino's on his way home from his office. And like those moments of delight of someone creating something new I hadn't thought about. I remember in college, I was given an Instant Pot as a gift, and I learned how to make butternut squash risotto. And I was like, oh my God, I can do this myself and I can give it to people. So it was kind of also the way when individual dishes kind of came in and delighted me or surprised me. That was kind of a feeling I was always drawn to of like, I want to create something. Like it was kind of like this form of creation that I was introduced to in my late teens, early 20s that I don't think I ever really thought about seriously before.
Yeah, take us to college. I want to talk about how you navigated what to study but to stick on food for a second, am I wrong remembering that you were someone that like cooked in the dorms?
Yeah, so the way college worked was, I think, in the first 2 years when you're a freshman and sophomore, you don't have any kitchen available to you, so you are subject
It's
to
like
the
a
dine,
gross end of the hallway situation.
which I didn't use because it was like people didn't maintain them. Those kitchens, I didn't, the dorm room kitchens I didn't use, and I was truly, this sounds really dramatic, but I was so depressed eating the dining room food. I mean,
Yeah.
you can ask my friends, I had cereal for 3 meals a day. I didn't want the like sad, sloppy looking chicken. Like I was a bit of a snob as a freshman and sophomore, and I ate probably more Sabra hummus that I like my friends would joke about it. It was like Sabra and cereal is all I ate. I was not happy with the dining room option. So once I had access to apartments my junior and senior year and I had a kitchen, I did much more meal planning. I got more into cooking for myself. And that's where I started at a very rudimentary level, but enjoying the act of doing it for myself, for me and my roommate, and starting to experiment like with stuff like that outside of my studies. So it went from like it kind of all started my junior year of college.
And what did that look like? Did that look like cooking for friends?
Yeah, nothing. I remember I would like read a cookbook. I would make something I was really proud of, and friends would come over. And like no one was doing that in college of
Right.
like cooking for people. And I remember distinctly making that butternut squash risotto for all my friends once, and like no one ate it. And I was so upset. I was
It's like
like,
too fancy for their palates.
they just were like, thanks, but no thanks. And I was like, I care so much about this risotto I just made you,
Yeah.
and no one cares.
Wow.
I remember having my feelings hurt by that. So I had this urge that I wanted to start cooking for people, and I was finding enjoyment in it, but I wasn't necessarily finding the right audience or like place to do it yet.
And certainly at that time, it was something that like you enjoyed doing and you were figuring out how to offer, but you weren't thinking about it beyond that hobby. And so,
Yeah.
how did you choose what to focus on in college from a major perspective? Like, what were you thinking about career-wise in those early college days?
I think when you go to college at 18, at least for myself, I both went to the University of Rochester, which is very science and engineering heavy school. And my criteria was I don't have the stomach to be a doctor. I don't really want to be an engineer. And, I like science. So I guess I'm going to study chemistry. Chemistry came really easy to me. I enjoyed it. It felt like solving puzzles. I liked chemistry and physics. So I was like, okay, like this is something I enjoy studying. I'll tack on a business degree and like figure out a world where I can do science and business challenged my brain in a different way. But there was no kind of connection to like, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do in the world as an adult? That was too far away and too removed to really conceptualize. It was really in the context of our college of like, this feels like my menu of options, and I guess like this makes the most sense for me, but I was not thinking further ahead to like, what does that mean when I leave and I'm choosing a career path?
Yeah. I remember because I was 4 years ahead of you, and so I graduated when you started. But I remember so fondly the years I came back for an MBA, and you were a sophomore and junior, and we would like meet up on campus, and I was in this graduate business program, probably similarly feeling a little bit out of place, at least initially, and you became this like safe space to come like be the 22-year-old, 23-year-old that I was. And you probably remember, funny enough, I was thinking about it over the last day. We both started our careers in consulting, probably
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what consulting was until we
Right.
did. And you might remember that year, you would have been a sophomore, I would have been in grad school. I had all this like corporate merch, and I had those Deloitte
I know
post-its.
what
Do you
you're gonna
remember
say.
that? And
Yeah.
I have this video. I didn't know what Deloitte was, so no guilt on you. And I remember you. Do you remember trying to pronounce Deloitte?
I was like, Delati?
Yeah.
I never heard of
Um,
it.
you're doing such a beautiful job. I'm gonna tell the listeners writing about your experience now on Substack.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of your essays, I just want to quote part of it because I really think this speaks to me in college. Obviously, it's how you felt in college. I think it resonates for a lot of people figuring out career. But you wrote, back in college, consulting was the gold standard for business students. If you were savvy, you aimed for banking or consulting. It was prestigious, sold as a fast track to success, and framed as a way to learn a lot while figuring out what you really wanted to do. Most people stuck around for a few years before burning out, then landing comfy jobs with their clients and riding off into the corporate sunset. So that's the path you ended up taking.
Mm-hmm.
You go on to say in this beautiful essay that there was a lot that you enjoyed about it and it
Mm-hmm.
challenged you. And so take us to starting out that career, being in that career, and what that in practice looked like for you as like an early professional.
Yeah, I think, when I was in college, I was going into senior year, thinking about what job you're going to take. As I wrote in that essay, the menu of, I was like, okay, ruled out doctor, engineer, don't want to be a PhD in chemistry. So, like, let's look in the business world. Consulting is something where you can kind of dabble in a lot of different aspects of a business and, like I said, kind of pick your lane as you're getting a smattering of like a real life education is kind of how it was framed. So I would do all these case interview preps. It was very intense. And I, ended up fairly early in my career getting a consulting position, and the package they give you kind of blew my mind as a young person. It pays well. You have all these benefits of, going beyond health insurance to like paying for my dog care and all this stuff, and you're like, whoa, like I'm an adult. This is crazy. Like this is really cool. And I did like a lot of it. Like I liked to be challenged. I liked the analytical stuff. Like no two projects were the same. You have to rapidly learn. But I just found throughout like my years doing it, like I was like, what am I doing? What am I working towards? Like I'm working long hours. I'm, yeah, work like exhausted behind a keyboard. You put COVID on top of it, and it's very isolating to be working remote at a computer job all day. And just like amidst all of these feelings of like, where am I going? What's this direction? Like, do I really want to be a senior director in marketing at some client and, be able to buy like the thing that, especially in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area, it was like everyone had a shore house when they made it. And I was like, do I care about that? Like, I don't think I care about that. Like, no, everyone's allowed to have their priorities, but internally, I'm just like, I just don't, it doesn't resonate with me. It feels like very hollow in my life. And my safe space and my intrigue and where my mind, where fantasies went was cooking. I think, Chef's Table on Netflix was truly a beautiful documentary window into the most glamorized version of it, but what it was to be a chef in like a real life
Yeah.
kitchen and what these people accomplished. And I was juxtaposing these beautifully told stories, and just these very inspiring people, with like this corporate world I was in, and it just felt so night and day. And I was like, I want to work. They're working so hard and like physically, mentally, they're risking things and putting things on the line for the pursuit of art and something they like care about and they're creating in the world. And there was something so pure and beautiful about it. And like, sure, it's through the lens of a Netflix documentary, but it was just like, I could not get it out of my head for the life of me. And that was kind of the loop for years. Then I just more and more was incorporating it in my life with starting a cookbook collection, like cooking in my free time, cooking elaborate meals for my family. And like and then I was like taking cooking classes in Philly in my free time. And you could kind of like hit this plateau of like, I just kept wanting more and more. And I was hitting the ceiling of what I was able to do in my life as a consultant in this rigorous business career. And then I don't mean to get ahead, but then in 2023, I was like, okay, I can't keep hitting this ceiling. I'm also questioning the direction of my consulting career. I need to do something else. And that's when I decided to start culinary school. I was still working my full-time job Monday to Friday, and then I would commute to New York City for a 9 to 5 culinary school Saturdays and Sundays, and did that for 9 months every single weekend. And the plan was always that to transition into a different career path, a cooking career. So that was kind of the journey of, it being a seed of an idea and like it going up against the friction of me not really resonating with what I was doing until it finally was like, okay, let's turn this on its head and just try this thing that, I want to keep pushing further, but I can't within the confines of my life as it is.
I think a lot about Brene Brown has a great quote that's like, we stay busy enough so the truth of our lives doesn't catch up with us. And you and I similarly both worked corporate jobs that could just consume all waking hours of the day if we let it. What role do you think COVID and the staying at home played in you really starting to consider this? And maybe it wasn't COVID, but I'm curious about just that turning point of really starting to listen to this curiosity that kept bubbling up for you.
I really don't know if I would have done this had it not been for COVID. I think COVID forced a lot of people to look hard looks at the lives they were building around them, for good, bad, whatever, but like look at it, because it was so easy, as you said, to stay busy. I mean, I was very fortunate that I had access to resources where I could plan trips. I could go out and see you in California. I could do all of this stuff and like stay busy with these dopamine hits outside of a busy job of like going to see friends I love, travel. Like you can really build out your life outside of work and love that and get fulfillment out of that. But I think it was like a pause button on all of that. It's like, what do I want to work towards? Like, what is the work aspect of my life? And the only thing I could think of as like an alternative, because in consulting, if you work in operations or marketing or finance, like you have all this, and a logical thing people would do is like, I'm going to try this other sector of a business world. And like, maybe I'll like finance and go work
like
for a client on that.
stay within the lane that you've chosen, but try to stretch and experiment a little bit. Yeah.
Which in a nice way, consulting has a lot more latitude to like go in these different places. And that's a huge benefit. But I remember in one of my performance reviews, I said in all seriousness to my boss, they were like, what do you care about getting better at? And I said cooking. Like I told them I want to be and I was the most honest I could be. I was like, I don't care about getting better at spreadsheets. Like,
were you saying it kind of like cheekily and irreverently, or was it a sincere response, like sincere and innocent response to what do you want to improve upon this next year?
It was so sincere. Like it was so honest, and it was probably came off as like a huge cry for help because I just for the life of me, I just did not care about like incremental improvements in the confines of the work I was doing. I just couldn't. I was doing well. I got promoted and like I could do what I had to do, but I just did not care about it. And I was like, this is what I really care about. And God bless my boss, who I still have a relationship with, but she just kind of wrote it on a slide and was like, okay, like cooking it.
She wrote it down. It's such a beautiful moment. One, because, I think about the annual review process. It can be so performative and you figure out the narrative and all of that jazz. And, you wrote in this beautiful piece you published recently, there's still a part of me that wishes I could have been content with all of it, satisfied to climb the ladder and enjoy the lifestyle that came with it. But that beautiful moment where you allowed the truth to just come out, you weren't, and maybe it's your innocence or naivete that you didn't think to pretend you cared. You let the thing that you really cared about just come out of your mouth.
Yeah. And I think there was definitely moments, and that was very early in career, but I did learn more that like you can't say that in when you're dealing with Fortune 500 clients and stuff like that. But every time I played the role and like was saying things I didn't believe or like didn't really care about, it felt, the way I would describe the feeling it gave was just like a hollowing out. Like it just was like, this isn't the thing that ignites me or like makes me excited. Like, and I would kind of, I've grown more mature around this, but I used to like tell my therapist, I was like, these people like are talking about how they care so much about like the percentage increase year to year revenue and bottom line. And I was like, they don't care about that. They're lying. And she was like, some people just care about different, like you can't judge. I was like being so judgmental because I'm like, these people don't care. Like, no, who could possibly care about this? And
where it was more about you grappling with that you didn't. And
right. It's like your judgments are a mirror unto yourself. Like it was all just a mirror of like, no, this says something about me and the career I'm in. And like, what is the thing that I'm actually like passionate about? And I am grateful for therapy and having someone to talk to as I'm grappling with all of this. Cause something she told me that I still think about a lot is like, what the world needs you, it's some quote that she found, and it's what the world needs you to do is to find the thing that makes you come alive. Like that's all they need from you. And I was not doing that. I was not in a place where I was feeling alive and in awe of like the possibilities of what my life could be. And when I started going to culinary school, I still had no idea where it was going to lead, if I was going to like start work cooking full time or what I was going to do. But just the act of like learning to be in a professional kitchen, learning these skills, like working towards something I cared about. Even though I was the most exhausted I'd ever been up until that point, it was also the most alive I had ever felt. And like that's kind of been this whole journey, is like find the thing that makes me the most like in awe of possibility. And like I don't need to know the end of the road yet. It's just like continuing to follow that feeling and see where it leads me.
It sounds to me a little like there's a tone of self-accountability and finding that you had agency to make a change for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about, thinking about the big change and the fantasy can feel so daunting, and you spent some time testing different things like taking cooking classes in Philly, and that it ultimately mounted to, I'm gonna choose this degree where I'm going to take a bus or train or car to New York City for 27 weekends in a row. And it was a time where you like couch surfed and you went to New York rolling your little suitcase of knives through the city, and you made this big commitment. Talk to me a little bit about what it took to make that choice. Like, I remember you calling me and kind of asking, hey, how much did you invest in your podcast and your acting? Because it took you working your full-time job for this to happen. So I just like grounding in these stories, like practically what that decision meant for you.
What I've come to understand about making such a big change and a big decision that was so outside my identity at the time is it was kind of like these degrees of shifts. So like there was the cooking class I took in Philly. It was like a 6-week commitment for, I want to say like $600. And it was 2 hours every Tuesday, let's say.
Yeah.
And I had never done something like that before, but I would like do some research, see what was available to me, saw that and be like, oh, that's a huge investment. Like, should I do that? Is that something that's like worth it? It seems kind of like, it was always kind of like a needing to take myself more seriously too, or it was like, that's like for my silly hobby, like that seems irresponsible. And then you sit with it and are like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, that's my best option at this moment to get closer to this thing I love. So, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to invest in that. And these little degrees. And then it was culinary school where I was like, had the seed of an idea. There's things like the Culinary Institute of America, which is a 2-year commitment, a huge investment. You're moving to Hyde Park in upstate New York. And I was like, well, I can't do that. Like, I have this life in Philadelphia and commitments here that's not possible to me. And then I was reading David Chang's autobiography where he was like found this culinary school in New York that was like in and out. He could get this education and like get right back to working. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look into that. And found they had weekend program. And I'm like, that's a crazy idea. I'm going to keep working full time and commute to New York. And it's like a much larger financial like responsibility with like tuition and all the transportation and stuff. And I'm like, okay, but maybe I could do that. Maybe that could fit into my life within the confines that I have, but like open it up to that. And it's kind of just these degree shifts where you discover something, sit with it, and then decide to take yourself seriously enough to invest in that. And it's been those shifts of like the education I've invested in, and then, actually taking the leap of eventually quitting my job and pursuing this thing where it's like, that feels crazy. That feels very irresponsible based on the confines of my life. And then it's like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and think about this for the next 5 years. This is the best option I have available to me today. It excites me, and even though it scares me. So like, let's just do it. So like, I think it led to like where I'm at a point now, working full time, have left my consulting job, and in this new world, like 3 years ago, before culinary school, would have never, ever dreamed of it. But it was kind of these degree of shifts of like having an idea and then sitting with it and then just deciding to do it that have kind of 180'd, but all by like 5-degree turns.
I love the idea of degree shifts, because even if it's half a degree, there's some degree that's possible versus looking at what would be 50 degrees and
Yeah.
be like, I can't do that, so what's the point? But there is little steps. And then sometimes there's bigger steps that you're ready for because of those little steps, like deciding to put yourself through culinary school. You have this great quote: during the week I was a buttoned-up consultant, on weekends a sweaty garlic-scented cook. It felt like unraveling, and I felt totally alive. I remember you saying when you first walked into culinary school, feeling like you were playing dress up. So talk a little bit about that first couple moments of walking into it. And because to me, that's, oh, I took a bigger degree shift now.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment of not a 5-degree, but more than that. And when I put on the jacket for the first time in the tiny little chef's hat that we wore, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and it is never a disrespect of culinary profession. Like, if anything, it's the reverence that I have for people in this field. It's not taking myself seriously yet. It's like, who do I think I am being in this world? Like, I'm in my late 20s. Like, I'm not someone who's starting out at 19 and like grinding out like the hard years. Like, I have different, my story's different from everything I've heard of people who are now successful chefs. So it was always a challenge of taking myself seriously in that world, because I had so much reverence and respect for people that grind it out and like can be successful in culinary. And it's imposter syndrome. It's like, who am I to do this thing that, and want to be in the same lane as people that I admire so deeply. And we're always so far away from where I was, where it's like, as you get closer to it, it kind of feels scarier almost, because you're like, oh, now I'm going to see if I can actually do it. Like, when it was an idea, it was a fantasy and you could imagine the most beautiful things. But then as it becomes closer, you're like,
Right.
I'm going to see if I'm actually cut out for this, and if I can actually hold my own in this world. It's a sphere. Once you start taking yourself seriously, you're opening yourself up to failing too, of like, this thing I've cared so much about and idealized for so long. Now that I'm trying it, I could fail. It could not work out. And I could have put all this stuff on the line to try to make this my world, and I might not be cut out for it. Like, I have these things working. You go through the catastrophizing of all the things that aren't working, that aren't in your favor, of starting late, of not having the same knowledge, of not being able to like go work for free for some amazing chef somewhere that like a lot of early 20s people can do. And like, so, you kind of go through the laundry list of like the things you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the imposter syndrome like so much more potent almost, or toxic in your brain. And it's finding a way to keep moving forward despite all the doubts and fears that you have.
I think about how, so now fast forward, you're in this like acclaimed restaurant in Philadelphia, My Loup. We'll tag it in the show notes. And you've said this beautiful paradox, both in the culinary school experience and now like being in a restaurant on a team, that it's both terrifying and thrilling. So talk about what that means to you and what that feels like.
It's surreal every day. It really is. I think, there's chefs that I have looked up to from afar for a long time, of what they've been able to create in Philly at a young age, very successfully. and they do it, and you could see this before I knew them, but it's only proven to be true when you know them, is they do it with joy and creating teams that really look out for each other and grow a lot. So it's just they've always seemed like enigmas in my mind and how like my outside view of picture the culinary world, and it's just proven to be true. So like the closer you get to it, it's just this intense drive to continually earn my place and like to earn the respect of others, but you also have to be where you are. Like it's such a it is can be so frustrating, but like you want to, I think in like computer jobs, you can like study a lot, you can over prep for something, and like you can just feel like you're jumping 2 steps ahead of where you're at. Like you can be like, okay, I can do this big presentation if I get enough courage, and like I'll over prep for it and I'll crush it. You can't do that in a kitchen because you are physically limited by the muscle memory that your body has and the amount of knowledge that you have. So it's just, it's kind of, it feels more like training for a marathon. You can't shortcut that in any way. So I also have to humble myself to like, for the cooks next to me that have a decade experience, like I have to learn from them. I have to be vulnerable enough to ask them questions, even if I'm their age or older. Like I have to open myself up to be at the stage I'm at, while also pushing to keep moving and to earn my place. So it's this back and forth. And I feel very fortunate to be there because it's a team that really respects each other, that, you know, celebrates me for the strengths I bring, but also is willing to invest in me to develop me where I want to catch up and where I want to be better and focus on. So, you know, I feel very fortunate. And from that gratitude, it's like this continual drive to help bring as much value as I can bring to the team and to the restaurant. So it's truly a feeling of like, not to sound overly flowery, but like I can't imagine being in a better place at like this stage. And I feel very lucky for the way the cards fell when I was looking for something full-time in restaurants.
I think there's something really meaningful in, because we've both talked about like, I call it like Wikipediaing people that you admire. And then like I do it when I'm watching a great film and I search when she started acting and how much older or younger she is than me, and it can reflect back that I'm behind, and you know, I can go down a spiral. Or we have a lovely ritual of you calling me sometimes on your walk to your car when you leave the restaurant at like 11:30 Eastern, and it's 8:30 here, and we're like both getting ready for bed. So I'm so grateful that we talk about these occasional spirals, but what I hear you reflect on today is like the confidence in accepting exactly where you are and that it's your path, and like, no, you won't be the cook that started out at 19. It will never be your story, which is a lovely starting point. And for you to hear you say, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, is such, I feel like, a milestone. And the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I think in my corporate experience, there can be a propensity to pretend you know more than you do, and like a fear of being found out. And I do think that is unfortunate and misplaced, and sometimes indicative of a workplace that doesn't feel safe, or you question your worth. In the work you're doing now, it's so precise and tangible that you can't, to what you're saying, you can't hide if there's a mistake. It's out in the open. It's like, it's so vulnerable. And it feels like a beautiful metaphor for being forced to accept that you're exactly where you are. And as I've heard about your experiences over the last several months through our phone calls, you've had these moments of, oh, I made a little mistake. I'm worried that someone's going to find out. And then I find that, knock on wood, give it 24 or 36 hours to your next shift and everything's usually okay.
Yeah, right. Right. And I think it's like being where you're at mentality and needing to be there is, you need to accept your limitations. Because if I am not confident in the way that I'm executing something, like I better be communicating it to someone so that, because like the worst thing in like a very, finely oiled machine of a restaurant where everyone's like responsible for what you're responsible for, you also have like the responsibility to share if it's not where it needs to be and to get support. So you need to be asking for help too,
Right.
very proactively, because if like someone's finding out something that was a mistake 3 hours ago and it could have been fixed then, and now we're in the middle of service,
Right.
like that's your responsibility for not being proactive in communicating. So it's, to what you said, it's extremely vulnerable. It's extremely like exposed for showing where your deficits are, but it also takes them a lot of like self-awareness of knowing what good looks like,
Right.
even if you fall short of executing exactly what that is yet. So I'm going to full circle us. It reminds me of dance. Like it reminds me of
Mm.
this pursuit of, you want to be perfect. And especially at like in earlier stages where I am right now, it's very challenging. Like I think it's first you have to know what excellent looks like. And you learn that from, the chef of the vision and of the things you're working towards. And even if you're not executing there yet, you have to know what that looks like and figure out how to fill the gap, because like your responsibility is to make sure that what goes out the door is at the right standard. And it's very vulnerable. You have to be honest if you're not there yet. Because the worst thing you could do is try and hide it and try and cover up or try and blame someone else. And then you're not supporting what needs to happen. It's a level of communication I was really not prepared for,
Right.
frankly. Like, I went to culinary school and I thought, I'm going to learn how to cook, but you also need to learn how to work in this kind of professional, high stakes environment. And that's been kind of a learning curve in and of itself.
I love that you brought it back to like the perfectionist ideal of dance.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked a little bit about just how grueling the dance experience could be with all you had to hold. You even mentioned like remembering fainting, like after
Mm-hmm.
a performance or something like that. What have you learned about taking care of yourself and resourcing yourself to show up to such a demanding craft every day?
I think there's this like trope about chefs that are like, I don't know, overweight or like lazy or something. And I'm like, I haven't seen that. Like these
Right.
people have to be pretty fit and be moving around. And I feel like it was Anthony Bourdain said it quite crudely in like one of his books that was like this idea of kind of like the trope of a overweight chef that eats everything and stuff. Like in a real professional environment, like they look like machines. Like so
Yeah.
it's been an emphasis on fitness and health and being able to feel good every day. Because I think if you start to fall into the like sleeping in and you need to prioritize sleep, but also your nutrition, but it's been a different kind of drive to like get strong for my career
Mm.
and feel good when I'm doing it, and with these long late hours if you're on your feet for 12 hours, but also lifting heavy things, like maneuvering different things, climbing over stuff and behind things, often like, you know you want your body to be a tool, not a limitation. So it's finding that balance, but it's also it's I feel strong, I feel competent, like it gives me more confidence walking into every day if I'm like feel good about the maintenance I'm doing on my body. So there's that aspect of like training, getting strong for it, but there's also kind of like on your days off, like being gentle, like after a full week
Yeah.
of 4 long days, if I need to sleep in and like not have my coffee till 11 o'clock, like I allow that to myself. So it's kind of this always balance back and forth, and listening to yourself and kind of like what am I going to be glad that I did a day, 2 days from now versus kind of like whatever the immediate thing you're looking for that day.
His pursuing food now professionally changed your relationship to it since it used to be this beloved hobby? People talk a lot about turning their hobby into something professional and what that change can be. And I know you're still early, but I'm curious how that shift has felt. Because I know you still, when you have the time, love making food just in your home and with friends and family.
Mm-hmm. I definitely am a lot more judgmental of myself, I think. Because you have less time. So
And
sometimes
because
when
you're like legit now, like you did the training, you know?
yeah, and even people with the most training sometimes screw something up and like something doesn't rise
Your
or
taste, remember we talk about the difference between taste, the gap between taste and where you are.
execution. Yeah.
Yeah, your taste has continued to go up.
Yeah, and you're trying to keep building your skill up. I heard David Chang say something once in an interview, and it's so true, is like he was asked about recipe development, how you know when a dish is done and good. And this is more in like R&D when you're like trying to create a new dish for a menu. And he goes, when I don't hate it anymore is when I think it's ready. Like
Wow.
you kind of don't love your creation ever because you're always comparing it and like trying to think about like, oh, it would have been so much better if this other person made it or whatever. But I loved what he said of like, when you don't absolutely despise it, then you know it's
Yep.
probably pretty good. Um, so yeah, there's like definitely such an intense self-criticism, but I do still find the joy in like cooking on my like you have to remind yourself when you're cooking for friends and family and people who aren't in restaurants and food, like don't rob yourself of the joy of just creating and eating and sharing something for them.
Yeah.
So I still enjoy that. I just have less time for it now.
We talk a lot about the parallels between your craft and acting for me. A lot
Hmm.
of actors, and my experience is the same in doing a piece of theater or a scene or what have you. It never feels like you've got it. There's always
Yeah.
something more to mine for, to understand. But when it's done and you let it go. So I love that when
Hmm.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
How do you think about the future now? You know, you talked a lot about in consulting this sense of awareness of what am I working towards? Do I see myself having that at 40? How do you think about the future the same way, or are you just in the present moment of letting this unfold?
What comes up for me is I feel more present and able to think more long term. And what I mean by that is I think in consulting, like, or, or just in the, yeah, in my previous type of work, like, I wasn't really mentally present. It was like you're working through a checklist, you're getting through like it's what felt like 20 meetings in a day and you just like check boxing stuff. So you're not really mentally present. But I also wasn't thinking long term. I was also just thinking of like, oh, I'll plan like this, like the distraction stuff of like, I'll plan this trip to look forward to in the next couple months, or I'll plan something else like I'll save up for this thing that's in 6 months. So, like I
Right.
wasn't thinking years into the future. Where now I think just with the type of work in itself, like you're so much more present of like, these are the skills I want to work on. Like this happened today. I want to focus on that for tomorrow. Like you're tuned in with your body more of like, where you want to focus your energy, what the week looks like, planning out all this different stuff. So I feel more present, but I also feel like I'm investing in something that's going to make me better when I'm 40 or like in 20 years from now and stuff. So it's it's truly both of like I don't know what that's when I think about the future, like I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I do feel confident that if it's anywhere in this realm that I'm in, I feel like this investment is so worth it. Like, and what I'm doing right now, and even if I'm not cooking, like I hope I'm cooking, but even if I'm not cooking and I'm in a different part of the food world, like I'm gonna be so glad I did this. And I, yeah, I I say a lot, like I can't envision a reality where I will ever regret doing what I'm doing right now. Um, so it's both. I feel both more present and able to think more long term.
I'll say real quickly, and then I have some fun wrap up questions. I love that you graduated from culinary school right after. Is it after you got engaged? Is that right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Because I know that Jeff, well, his career path is so specific, and I won't put words in his mouth, but it's like such a long-term commitment. And he's in a ton of school, and I'm so excited to see where it goes. I know that he's been such a source, it's going to make me emotional, of support. And I
Yeah.
remember you saying that he would ask you, like, when are you going to do it? And when are you
Yeah.
going to, I didn't think I would get emotional, but
It's
when are you going to
okay.
make the change? But I say that, well, like you've done this for you. And I guess I'm emotional because I feel so grateful for your partner. I'll
Yeah.
save this for your wedding. Oh my God.
Yeah. No,
I
it's
did not
okay.
expect to say
So
that and
sweet.
cry.
It's so sweet. It's okay.
That's all.
Was there a
Um,
question?
no, it's just a shout out to Jeff. Was there a question? Oh my God.
Yeah.
You can comment on it, but I wanted to just celebrate that the partnership you have, because you're both in this together while being on very individual paths.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's true. And he has, like, I remember some nights when, because my path was not totally linear. I went to culinary school, I did a culinary internship, and then I went back to my consulting job. I don't think I was ready for the, like, I can come up with a million excuses, but I don't think I was ready for the full jump at that moment.
Right.
And I retreated a bit into like what was a safe space of my consulting world. And um every time I had a hard day, he was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And kind of this, I appreciate that he did not placate me in that world, and he had an
Yeah.
impatience, and he was like, you know the answer to this, like don't.
Damn.
And it was very, straight to the point, like cut to the bone of like, I know you're feel miserable right now, but like you are the only person that can fix this. And like you've invested all of this and you've done all of this. Like what is the point at this point? And like I would go down the catastrophizing rabbit holes of like, I'm not ready, I'm not, all this stuff. And like,
Yep.
and he's so black, was so black and white about it. And I appreciate it so much because he was just, it was that kind of like impatience of like, just do what you should be doing right now. Like this, the extra money of 6 months of this job, it's not worth it in 10
Yep.
years. Like it's just not worth it. And I don't believe in regret, and it is what it is. And then I left my job at the beginning of this year and have been doing it since. But I appreciate so much of his not babying me, of like,
Yep.
do the hard thing, and like I'm here for you. And like it is the best, one of the best gifts of my life. And I think it's not just him, it's you, Erica, our parents. Like I owe so much to be surrounded by people that didn't look at me like I was crazy. Like I definitely judged myself more than the people around me. And it took listening to my loved ones of like, you're interested in this, you figured out your life so far, like just keep going. Like that is the best gift I think you can give anyone, is believing in them. And would like to think I'm like confident enough to say I could have done all this on my own, but it's not true. Like I don't know that because I've been surrounded by wonderful loved ones.
Keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Keep moving forward.
And a reminder of your agency in your life and in choice. It's so powerful.
The one sobering thing too, I think, in this whole journey is like where you have like those insecurities of like people think I'm crazy and like I'm gonna be so judged. Truly, no one cares.
No one cares.
Truly, I've found people in the culinary working for my coworkers now, very similar story to me. So it's so helpful to know how not special you are sometimes.
Liberating.
Or liberating. Like or maybe that's too harsh because we're all special, but like it's been done before. So like, and find inspiration around you kind of thing.
Well, and I've had language from my teachers that are is like, you got to get over your stuff. Yeah. Because once you say the thing that feels, I've done it in acting class where I'm like, oh, they're going to find out I'm the, once you get it out, it doesn't have power over you and you realize nobody cares. And if anything, that's the stuff people relate to. Right. And there's something on the other side of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I have a couple fun ones just to bring us home. Mm-hmm. The truth is, I used to think blank, but now I know blank.
The truth is, I used to think it would be too late to do something new, but now I know the rest of my life is too important to think that way.
What's a ritual that keeps you?
Spending time with Jeff and Arlo.
What would your 8-year-old self say to you today?
It's really cool you did what you did.
And what would your 80-year-old self say?
Thank God, because who knows where we'd be right now.
Period. Thank you so much for doing this. I thought before you go, tell everyone something really lovely that you've made recently or something that you're looking forward to making.
One of my favorite things I've made that I learned in culinary school, but I've riffed on it a little bit, is a Sicilian tuna salad. And I've made it for our love, Dylan Joseph. I've made it with heirloom tomatoes instead of sun-dried tomatoes recently. So it's a seared tuna steak cut into small pieces with a red wine vinaigrette, fresh heirloom tomatoes in the summer, celery for crunch, basil, red onions. Very simple, so delicious. It's my favorite thing to eat in the summer. And I used to make it with sun-dried tomatoes, but I did it with heirloom tomatoes recently, and I love it.
Okay, tomato.
Yeah.
Dylan's going to love that shout out. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to share your Substack, even though it's semi-private. And can everyone catch you at where can people come eat your food?
Well, it's not my food. It's Chef Alec Kemp's food, but
the food that you contribute to.
That I contribute to is My Loup in Philadelphia on Walnut Street. Was my favorite restaurant before I worked there, so I'm biased, but it's
amazing.
The best.
I just went a couple weeks ago and it was phenom.
Yeah, it's phenom. They're phenom chefs. Shout out Alex Kemp and Amanda Schulman. Amazing.
All right, thanks, little sis.
Thanks. Love you.
Little Sis opening in 2029.
Maybe 2030.
2031.
2030? Yeah, that feels right. That feels like that's possible.
Little Sis
2031.
Bistro, Little Sis opening 2031, location to be determined.
To be seen.
I will be there. That's where we grew up. I'm going to have to edit that out.
Sorry.
So my stalkers don't. Okay. All right. Love you.
Love you.
I hope you leave this episode with something that stays with you, a question worth holding or an insight worth following. If this conversation resonated, subscribing or sharing the episode helps bring more people into the conversation. And connect with The Truth Is at The Truth Is Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to the people who make this show possible. Editing by Dan Kroll. Video production and editing by Anton LaPlume. Music by Will Savino. Visual identity by Sarah Gaynor and Jonathan Bush. And guidance from my friend and advisor, Natalie Tulloch. I'm Kathryn Flaschner. Thank you for listening to The Truth Is.